let's do it. What are we looking at today? So first things first, I'm going to run through all the different types of payments or donation payments specifically that can be received through Keela. That's number one, layer number one. Then, once we're really comfortable with the types of donations, I'm going to start examining the types of receipts that can be produced for all of those. Then lastly, we're going to look at how you'll be issuing your receipts, any outstanding receipts next year, probably in January, using our bulk receipting tool. If we have enough time, I do have some bonus items here that I can cover. So if we get to the end, we've got lots of time left. It's never happened in the history of K-Labs webinars, but you never know. I'll cover these things. Or if we don't have any questions at the end, I'll make sure I've got lots to cover at the end as well. And if we don't have time to cover it, I'll include it in the follow-up email that we have that we'll send out with the recording. So you're going to get lots and lots of stuff. Okay, as we say at Keela, buckle up. Let's get started. This is a big one. First, I want to make sure that we all have a really strong foundation of all the different types of donations that can be logged in your Keela account and how each one can be receipted. So we're going to start with a few layers of knowledge, and then we're going to look at the tool, just so you've got all that information, you know exactly where we are, where we're at, where we're going. If you're feeling overwhelmed, there's a lot going on in receipting season. If you're ever feeling overwhelmed, just remember the rule of threes. There are 3 different types of donations that can be logged in Keela, and only 3 types of receipts that can be issued. Let me explain. Let's start with the donations. This is the easiest part. So we've just gotten through Giving Tuesday. We're guns down, ready to go into end of year. I know it might feel like you've got donations coming in left, right, and center, but at the end of the day, there are actually only 3 types of donations that can be put into your Keela account. Donations that came through a Keela donation form, donations that were processed directly in your Keela account with the payment details entered, or donations that were logged directly in your Keela account without a payment method. Keela form, in Keela with a payment method, in Keela with no payment method. 3. Let's dive into each one. Let's start with Keela donation forms. So these are the donations that donors have made directly through your online Keela donation form. This could be a form that's embedded neatly in your website, looks lovely, or maybe it's one that you've shared in an email sent out via Keela. It doesn't matter if it's a one-time donation or a monthly donation or a weekly donation. It doesn't matter how the donor got it. The outcome is the same. It's a donation that has been received through your Keela donation form. That's the donation payment number 1. Here's an example of a new Keela donation form. Let's jump in here. So you put this on your website, you share it via email, donors come here and they process their own donations. All that beautiful information that they're putting into here, it ends up in your Keela account automatically and the payment is processed. These are our favorite types of donations at end of year because they require no administrative work from you. So stay tuned. We'll learn more a little bit about that when we get to the receipts. But for the moment, all you know is that the first type of donation payment that can be entered in your Keela account is one that comes through a Keela form, just like this. Next, these are the donations that are processed in your Keela account directly by you or a team member with a credit card or bank payment details entered at the same time if you're a Keela Pay user, and a payment is processed. So they're donation payments that you or your team member logged directly on a contact's profile. You selected the payment method option that allowed you to make the payment at the time. Let me show you what this is. I feel like we need demonstrations to break this up. So let's go to Scooby-Doo's profile and I'll show you what I mean. If I go to the transactions section of fundraising on Scooby-Doo's profile, he's a contact in my account. He's helped me solve many a mystery. In here, I create a new donation. I enter the details. So it was $100 buckaroos. I'm going to skip over the associations. I don't need to add any beautiful labels to it and head straight to receipting. Now, this is a spoiler. Okay, we're going to come back to this. This is going to be up next in the types of receipts that you can issue. So I want everyone to pretend to be very surprised when they see this in about 5 minutes. But for the moment, let's ignore it. I'm going to skip receipting for now. All I'm doing is creating a donation in my Keela account with a payment method. When I go next to the payment tab, I can choose from all these different types of payment methods. And this type of donation that I'm talking about, the one that allows you to enter payment details, you can either choose online via Stripe, online via PayPal, or if you're in the US, soon to be Canada, online via Keela Pay. So the second type of donation is a donation that's been manually logged in your account, and one of these three options has been chosen. I'll go with Stripe for the moment. Stripe button appears as soon as I select online via Stripe, and from here I can enter those payment details. So in summary, to summarize, the second type of donation that we have, this one here, it's a one that was processed directly in your Keela account by you or a team member with payment details, just like I did with Scooby-Doo just now. Then, of course, the last type, lucky last, the catch-all, is any donation that has been logged in your Keela account by you or a team member without a payment attached. So they're donation records only. These can be manually logged, they can be imported. So maybe you manually logged one when you got a cash payment or a check payment whenever you get checks sent in, or maybe you imported a whole bunch of historical data this year and you've got them all in your account, no payment methods attached. So if we look at Scooby's profile again as an example, when I go back here to the payment section, I wouldn't select one of these little payment methods that allows me to make a payment. I'd select cash or check or even credit card or externally via Stripe. All these payment methods aren't connected to a payment processor. Maybe I imported 60 checks that we got, or maybe I have a bank transfer EFT. Someone interacted some payments to me if I'm in Canada. So that's the last kind of one. It includes everything that happened outside of Keela. The payment happened somewhere else. Okay, let's jump back. So in summary, there are three types of donations that can be logged in your Keela account: donations through a form, donations logged by you or a team member, whether it was manually or imported with a payment method, or without a payment method. Those are the three. That's the first set of threes we're looking at. Now, I know each and every one of you has your own unique process for adding donations to Keela, but no matter what you're doing, no matter how you're adding them, you can only have these three types of donations. You might only have offline payments. Perhaps you don't use a Keela donation form at all. No worries, that's fine. You probably only need to worry about these two types of donations. Or maybe you don't accept anything except credit card payments via a Keela form, in which case your work is going to be really easy this receipting season. I think most of you probably have a mix of all three types of these payments. And we're going to look at how receipts work for each type of payment so that you've got a really clear direction. We're going to zoom in on those. So we have a pretty good handle on the three types of donations. Let's take a deep dive into those receipts. And you guessed it, baby, there's three types. There are so many three references in this webinar. I promise I didn't do it deliberately. It all just kind of worked out. So the three types of receipts that you need to consider for those three types of donations. So whenever you think donations in Keela, these are the only three that are available. We've got the receipts that have already been issued. So they've already been created, they've already been sent to the donor, job's done. You've got the one in the middle, which is scheduled receipts. So these haven't been sent yet, but they will be automatically by Keela. So another great one, no work required there, job's done. And then there's the last one here, everything else. So these are all of the donations that have not had a receipt issued for them yet. So they're outstanding, no receipt has been issued. These are the real reason why we're here today. We want to learn, okay, well, what about those, the ones that we haven't issued? What are we going to be issuing when it comes to January 2023? We'll get there, but we're not ready yet. Let's build the foundation first and then work our way up. Let's talk about these a little bit more because I know you've got questions. We'll start with already issued, the easiest ones. They're the best kind of receipts. you can possibly have because they're the ones that you've already sent. This is like the farmer mouse, no, the town mouse, no, the opposite. This is the farm mouse who collected all the acorns, not acorns, wheat sheaves, I don't know. The one who's saved up all winter, all summer, and when it comes to winter, they sit back and they relax. Already issued receipts, chef's kiss. These are the ones we want. So these ones already issued, they're relevant to all three types of those donation payments that I said, but for different reasons. So Keela forms, every donation that comes through a Keela form has had a receipt issued for it automatically. It's emailed to the donor, it's already been done. So if majority of your donations came through a Keela form this year, you are sorted, with one exception, which I'll cover in the next receipt type. But basically, if it came through a Keela form, if it's that type of payment, your receipts are already issued. You have no action items for those. In Keela with a payment or an offline payment. So these last two ones here. So remember when I was logging that payment for Scooby-Doo and I said, don't look, this is a spoiler. When I was back in this receipting section here, this is what I meant. So when I'm manually creating these donations, if I'm logging it in an account, I can choose to generate a receipt and send now via email. Or I can choose to generate a receipt so that I can download it and I can print it and then I can mail it. So that's why you can have already issued receipts for the payments that you've already logged in your Keela account throughout the year. It's a possibility. So if I look at these already issued, again, this is the one that we don't need to worry about. It's already done. You do not have to create new receipts for these payments. In fact, you should not. If you've already created a receipt for these, you should not be creating new receipts. It's not considered very compliant. It's a little bit naughty to create multiple receipts for a single donation. So we do recommend just sort of keeping them, your job's done. I'm giving you permission to check these off the list. Next up, we have the scheduled receipts, and this is that one exception I was talking about. So these are only for recurring donations or scheduled donations. They're for the monthly, the weekly, the annual, ongoing donations that have been logged in Keela and set up on a scheduled basis, the ones we charge every month automatically for you. Now, it's possible when you're creating these, when you're logging them for the first time, or when a donor is logging them for the first time, to choose to receive a receipt at the end of the year. And that's what this scheduled is. Let me show you what I mean. We'll head back to this donation form. I've already got monthly selected here. So $20 every month. Let's say I'm a donor. Sometime during 2022, I came here and my name was Scooby-Doo. And my email address is scooby@whereareyou.com. I thought that was very clever when I was writing this webinar. And I continue. Now down here, see this option here. Let me zoom in a little bit. See how that says receipt preference? Because I'm using one of Keela's wonderful brand new donation forms, I can choose for the cumulative receipt to be the default option here. And your donors, they might not even register this. They might just click continue. They want to get out. They want to go on with the rest of their day. But what this does is it says, okay, you've got an ongoing monthly donation of $20. I can either send you a single receipt for each transaction or a cumulative receipt at the end of the year. And we're always wanting to gear folks towards this so that when it comes to January next month, there's less receipts for you to do. And that's why scheduled is so fantastic. So I know you're all asking, well, when are these receipts going to be sent, Elsie? Well, I'm getting there. So this is how we gear your online Keela donation form for scheduled receipts. But I want to show you one more thing, because you can also choose that option when you're manually logging these donations, these donation records. So we'll head back to Scooby. Might zoom in a little bit. And then I go to the scheduled recurring section this time. And from here, I'm going to log a recurring donation. $100 every month. Scooby's a very generous boy. We'll go to receipting, and here I have that receipt setting, and I want to make sure I'm selecting create an email an annual cumulative receipt at the end of the receipting year. So these donation payments, if as long as the donor selected this option or you selected this option when you were creating this manually in your account, then the receipt is going to be scheduled. So let me click next. We'll save. Yes. And you can see here that we have, let me go back here. Oh, I forgot, I didn't do the cumulative one. Lucky I've got I'm sorry, I looked at the other option. Lucky I've got this one here that I created yesterday when I was practicing. So the receipt option is create an email and annual cumulative receipt at the end of the year, and the status is going to be scheduled. So that's what I mean by this scheduled receipts. They can come through a form, they can be manually logged. It's just any time a recurring donation is logged and that setting of sending a receipt at the end of the year has been selected. Okay, now it's time to talk about the dates of when those are being sent. When are we sending these? So it depends on your fiscal year. It's around about the first week of everybody's fiscal year. So my fellow Australians' fiscal year starts on July 1st. So your scheduled receipts will begin sending on July 4th, 2023. My New Zealand friends, their fiscal year starts April 1st. So we'll begin sending those on April 4th. And all the lovely Canadians, USA, or just anybody else who doesn't identify with the charitable status of Australia and New Zealand, yours are going to begin sending on January 4th. Now, you'll notice that I've said begin sending. We have thousands and thousands of receipts, so there is a little bit of a queue. So we start sending them on the 4th. Sometimes you might still be getting receipts sending out on the 5th, but we'll never split those cumulative receipts up or anything like that. We just might do 100 of your contacts on the 4th and 12 on the 5th or something like that. But the first week of the fiscal year, you'll definitely see those getting sent out. Okay, everything up until this moment has been designed to get you really familiar with how donations and receipts come together in Keela. Absolutely none of the information that I've given you so far comes with an action item. It's info only. So if you're thinking, oh, this is a lot, what am I supposed to do? Nothing, actually. This is all just information, I promise. Unless it's you going to adopt a new Keela form so that you can make cumulative receipt at the end of the year the default option for anybody who sets up an ongoing monthly donation. Definitely something I would recommend doing. But everything's just been info only until now. Now is when you and your team come in. We're looking at any donations in your account that have not already had a receipt issued for them or scheduled for them. Everything else, no receipt. They're not scheduled, they're nowhere, no receipt has been issued for these payments. Now, these are only for the payments that you and your team have created in your own Keela account. There is no Keela donation forms here because remember, those are always either issued immediately or sent at the end of the year. So they're done. Like I said, if you're using Keela donation form, majority of your receipting is already done. So these are only the donations that have been logged in Keela with a payment or without a payment. They were manually logged, like we saw when I was working on Scooby-Doo's profile here. I was in there logging that transaction in here. So I do see folks get a little bit out of hand in January and get this idea in their head that they want to create new receipts for every donation that they received in 2022 or the year before. This is very naughty and it's too much work. You don't need to do it. You should not be creating new receipts for receipts that have already been issued because you can't have multiple serial numbers for a donation. We do have the option to cancel receipts and reissue them if a mistake was made, but I would use it lightly. Mostly, only focus on the receipts that you haven't issued because reissuing them is a hell of a lot of work. And that's work that you should either be spending recuperating from the year that's been, or at the very least, put that work back into your cause area. We don't need to be creating all this work for ourselves for the sake of donor stewardship. You'd be better off spending that energy creating a really beautiful end of year holiday video or something like that. So please, 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 please only focus on the receipts that haven't been issued. I give you permission. Use that energy somewhere else. You're going to have more outstanding benefits than sending a receipt. You know what I mean? They've already got it. So the only receipts that you should be issuing come January are these ones right now. And let me tell you how to do that. The reason now we're here. So we're about to see the big finale. Picture this. Imagine that I am you. It's receipting day. It's January. I'm here. I'm entering into Keela. This is what you're going to be doing for any of those outstanding receipts. We're going to head to fundraising. Oh, I might zoom in on this a little bit too. Don't know if you're all the same, but I find webinars can be a little hard on the old eyes. So I'm here in fundraising and I'm going to be hovering over this receipts tab here. This is where you're going to be spending your time this week in January. So you might have noticed that we have 3 layers. It's the rule of 3, my friends. I promise I did not do this deliberately. It all just kind of worked out like that. We have 3 layers to this tool, and we're going to work through each one. They all happen in order. First up, we have unreceipted transactions. So just like that, I now have a report in here of every receipt in the current year that has, every donation in the current year that does not have a receipt issued for it. Now, I know this says current fiscal year. I know. It shouldn't. It's actually receipting year / calendar year. So we're looking at 2022. And if I click on this drop down list, I can head to the previous year. That's 2021. It's not fiscal year. This confused me, confused people last year. I forgot to get it updated last year. I promise I'm getting it changed this year. If you're watching this webinar in the future and you see that this has been replaced to current year, previous year, and there's no mention of fiscal, you're welcome. That will be my legacy for you. But for the moment, everyone on the webinar, just ignore the word fiscal. Think of it as year, calendar year, receipting year. So I'm looking right now at all of the unreceipted donations for my current year, 2022. I've got a list right there. I know that I've got 1,108, which is too many. I hope none of you have that many, but it doesn't matter because we're going to bulk receipt them anyway. So we can do them in a couple of clicks. So we start here on the unreceipted transactions page. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be approving transactions so that they get sent to the approved transactions section, which is the next layer. So we're starting here. This is the first stop. The first thing I recommend that you do is remove any transactions from this section that do not need a receipt, because I know that there are some in here that don't need a receipt. It can't be all 1,000. I can't have not issued 1,000 receipts this year, right? And I want to show you a couple of tips to help you ignore those from receipting so that they're not in this list anymore. You can get them out of your hair. How do we do that? Well, if you want, you can select them one by one. Click on this little actions button that pops up as soon as I start selecting. And ignore this, that's a spoiler. Ignore the approve for bulk receipt. We're looking at mark as ignored. So I can just mark these as ignored, confirm, they're gone. I don't want you to go through combing with a fine tooth comb looking for the transactions. I want to show you some tips to speed this part up. So there's a couple of ways. The first way is through the filters button here. So if you've got a specific piece of criteria that you know any donations that match that criteria shouldn't be receipted, you can filter those out. Filters are a way for you to say, hey, Keela, show me everyone or everything that matches this specific criteria. So as long as you've got that information, you're good to go. So let's go filters. Let's say I am a relatively new organization who has started with Keela. Maybe I made the official switch to the Keela system on March 4th. 2022, March 4th this year. So I know that any donations that were received before that go live date of March 4th have already had a receipt issued in another system, perhaps. So a really easy way to narrow that down is to look at the dates that the donations were received. So in this case, let's look in, we'll go date received. We're going to look at is between, which lets me specify a little section of time. And we'll jump to March 3rd. Oh, no, sorry. We will jump to January 1st, and our cutoff date is March 3rd. So just like that, I'm saying, hey, Keela, show me every donation received between that time period. We'll filter. 72 unreceipted transactions match those. We've got Bilbo Baggins, Mary Poppins, the gang's all here. And all I need to do in this case is click on this little drop down icon here, and I can select either all the donations that are on this page or all pages. Select them all. 72 selected. Action, mark as ignored. That's 72 less transactions for me to worry about. Right, let's jump back into the filters. Let's try another one. So You probably saw when I was adding that filter that we have a couple of filter categories in here, specifically fundraising transactions. So if you want, you can just sort of go in here and use this information to inspire you. So we've got campaign, date received, the one I just used, whether or not it has a source, the specific amount. Perhaps you only issue receipts for donations that are over a specific threshold or something like that. You can look at it that way and kind of get inspiration from here. For example, I got a little bit inspired just then when I saw campaign at the top, because I remember we ran a Mother's Day campaign this year at my very fake organization. And it was just a campaign for people to give cash donations. We had a bucket. So no donations were issued for those. No donation receipts need to be issued for those, because we had like maybe had one of those receipt books and we were doing them on the go or something like that. It's a fake scenario. Don't go too hard on me. So Mother's Day campaign 2022. I know any donations for that campaign have had a receipt issued for them or are not eligible for a receipt. So I'm going to filter out those. Okay, so we've got 22 transactions. Let's select all pages and let's mark as ignored. I'm just going to take some water. Lovely, we're on our way. I've got one more I want to show you. This time, we've been looking at fundraising transactions. Don't forget about contacts. I can filter out all the donations that match a specific criteria on the donor's profile, which is pretty cool, I think. So you've got all your standard stuff in here. You've got custom fields, which is really cool if you track your own unique data for this, or if you have your own internal way of labeling who should be getting a receipt and who shouldn't. We've got things like all of the donor stuff. Tags is a great one. I know that a lot of folks use tags for this information. But for me, I am very ashamed to say that I actually have some contacts in here who don't have a full name. So I'm the data queen. You've probably been on webinars where I've said data is so important. You should be tracking data. Well, in my fake test account, some of my contacts don't have full names. Okay. I don't get on my case about it. It's from 2019 when I first started. I'm very ashamed of it. But if I want, I can use this filter to find those contacts who don't have a full name, because of course it's not going to be compliant for me to issue a receipt for someone who doesn't have a full name. And I can say full name is empty. So show me anyone where the full name is empty. Now, to be honest, you don't have to do this because we're not going to let you issue a receipt for someone who doesn't have a full name anyway. We've got lots of checks and balances for that. But I just wanted to show you this kind of filter logic. 243 unreceipted transactions with no full name. That is very embarrassing. Select all pages, sweep that under the rug. Goodbye. So you might be thinking now, well, do I need to ignore receipts? What if they all need a receipt? You might have that case. I'm very envious of you if all of the receipts, all of the donations in here are beautiful and they all deserve a receipt and everything's great. You can skip this step entirely. But I wanted to give everyone else kind of a demonstration. So that's the unreceipted transaction section. That's layer number one, the top layer. Now, we need to move these transactions down into the second layer. And to do this, we need to approve them. So for this, I'm just going to select all pages. We've got 768 selected. I'm going to click on this actions button. And this is the thing I told you to ignore. This is how we can approve them. And if you want, you can filter your donations and approve them one by one or in groups as well if you feel more comfortable doing it. It works the exact same way. But I'm happy with these. I'm going to approve them all for a bulk receipt. It does take a couple of seconds. We're moving those transactions through. So you might want to just jump to the approved transactions and wait for that information to come through. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why do we have this second layer? If this is where I'm going to be sending the bulk receipts from, why do I have to move them all into the approved section? It's a great question. When it comes to receipts, oh, there they are. When it comes to receipts, there's all these compliance issues and things like that. We put this check balance process in here because we want to make sure that you have that layer of protection or you have that layer of review. You can completely ignore it. Like I said, you can approve all transactions on day one if you want, but I found it's better to be safe than sorry. So we approved all of the 768 transactions. Here they are. And again, remember, I'm on layer number 2 at this point. So this is where we're sending the receipts from, basically. Now, from here, again, you could select all pages and you could issue receipts from this selection, or you can mark as ignored from here. It's not too late. If you see someone who shouldn't be in here or see a donation that shouldn't be in here, you can still mark as ignored from here. I don't recommend going straight to the issue receipts. Here's what I like to do. Every time I'm kind of reminding myself about how this process works, I like to pick one donor and issue their bulk receipt just for that one donor to get really comfy with the process. Now, it's the holiday season, so let's look at Mr. John McClane, because Die Hard is one of the most magical Christmas movies of all time. And I can see that I'm using this search to narrow it down, and I can see we have 17 approved transactions for John. So he's got 17 donations that are unreceipted. Let's start with John. And if you've got someone at your organization, like a team member or something, or maybe yourself, if you donate to your own organization, maybe you want to start with yourself or a team member with this to do the test, just in case, you make a mistake or something like that. But we've made it very hard to do that, as you'll see. Okay, so we've got 17 transactions. What happens? I'm going to select this whole page of them. I'm going to click on actions and I'm going to issue the receipts. Bum, bum, bum. So let's just take one moment to pause and just summarize where we are so far, because I feel like I didn't spend enough time on the approved transactions sort of section, and I don't want you to feel like I'm rushing you. So before we get into this final step, I'm actually going to take a step back, and I'm just going to remind you of where we are. So we've got, actually, I will show you one thing before I do. I want you to look at this. See how that says receipt group name? The first thing I'm required to do when I'm issuing this bulk receipt is to name the receipt group. That will be important when I'm summarizing. So we started at the top, unreceipted transactions. We reviewed all of those donations with some filters and some searching, and we moved them or ignored them. If we ignored them, they disappear from the bulk receipting tool. We don't need to worry about them. If we approve them, they ended up in the approved transaction section, which is where we are right now. From here, this is where we create receipt groups or create bulk receipts. And although I'm creating the receipt itself via that window you just saw, once I've created the receipt groups, I can manage them in here. So there's 3 layers. We're just about to enter the 3rd layer, but we're in that transition process. So I want you to feel comfy about those layers. Okay, let's do it. Let's be strong together. Let's create this. Issue receipts. So it's time to issue a receipt for John McClane. Yippee-ki-yay. Let's call it John McClane's receipts. The delivery method. So at this point, I can choose from three different delivery methods. My favorite one, which is generate receipts and send via email, and that happens immediately. As soon as if I choose generate receipts and I finish this process, we'll send out those receipts for John. There is generate just receipt for print and mail. So if you've got folks who you're going to send this maybe with a card, maybe your major donors get their own printed receipt, you can choose that, or you can choose to print the receipt and the acknowledgement letter as well. So you've got 2 little printy options there to download and print from here. But we're going to be emailing this one to John. He's got an email address. I want to get it out. I want to get out of my hair. Now we have a choice about what kind of receipt we want to send. You can choose to format money transactions in as a 1 receipt per donation or a cumulative receipt per donation. Oh, sorry, cumulative receipt per donor. Now, you know what I'm going to choose. I'm a big fan of the cumulative donations wherever possible. So this is going to look at all 17 of those transactions of John's, and it's going to combine them all into 1 receipt. As a rule, I would just recommend always choosing cumulative receipt per donor. I don't foresee anybody ever desiring multiple receipts. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes you've already issued a receipt for a one-time donation that John made back in February, but all of the others we're going to include on this cumulative receipt. Now down here it says receipt format for non-money transactions. 1 receipt per donation. You'll notice I can't edit this. And this is because it's actually not compliant to have a cumulative receipt for these non-money transactions. So what we've done is we've shown you what's happening. This is how we're sort of telling you that information, but we've also made it uneditable. So you're never going to accidentally issue non-compliant receipts for those. So that's what that is. If John has a non-money transaction in there, he's going to get a separate receipt for that. Let's go next. We're all set. So on this plate, this is the kind of the last check before I issue that bulk receipt for John. I can see we've got one recipient. Good. That's John McLean. No receipts are missing. None of the recipients are missing information. So you can already tell from this that we're going to tell you if there's missing information, or we're going to help you kind of make sure you're not making any mistakes. 17 transactions, John McLean's receipts. All of this is the setting information that I chose, and it's the year 2022. Ignore fiscal. It's going to be removed. But this is the year. It's for the receipts in 2022, because of course we can't issue 2021 receipts and 2022 receipts on the same receipt. That's non-compliant. So it's only 2022. We'll go ahead and we'll click save. Okay. Approved transactions. Where do we go now? Well, we go to the third layer, receipt groups. So it can take, you saw that pop up, we're processing this, it may take a while. Because I only had 17 transactions, it's been almost immediate. But if you're doing it for 1,000 transactions, it might take 15 minutes or so. But when it's ready to go, it'll be in the receipt groups here. So the final layer. John McLean's receipts have been sent. I can see they were generated for email and they've been sent. But if I click in here, I can actually see each individual donation. I can see the receipt. I could see that on John's profile, to be honest, but here might be cool. I can even download them if I want. I'm not sure why you would want to do that. I feel like that would be a lot of work considering you've sent them out via email. But I'm showing you all the options. So we had cumulative receipt per donor, and that's why you're seeing the same receipt number for all of these. It's the same donation receipt. Okay, that's it. You could do that for 1,000 donations. I do recommend doing the test. Yippee-ki-yay, right? Think of yippee-ki-yay when you're doing it, and it'll make it more fun. So I'm going to head back. I'm going to go back to the approved transactions because we still have 751 to go. Let's do a different one this time. Now, like I said, we have those two different delivery methods, right? You've got your deliver immediately via email or create a receipt for download and you can print it from your computer once you've downloaded it, which is giving me some ideas. I know I've got this filters tool. Why not filter by folks who don't have a primary email address? So primary email is empty. And I know for a fact these people are not going to be, I'm not going to be able to send emails to these folks. So if I were you, this is probably the first thing the first receipt group I would create is after I've done that one test, I would look for this filter and we'll filter them out. Okay, so I have 48 transactions. Looks like we've got Darth Vader, Ebenezer Scrooge, and Minnie Mouse, from the looks of things, don't have an email address. So I know that I'm going to have to issue a bulk receipt and deliver it via mail. Or maybe I can call them and get their email address if that's possible. But let's look at what it's like to create a receipt like that. So I'm going to select all pages. I'm going to issue receipts from selection. And this time, let's call it 2022 printed receipts, no email address. And that way I know everybody in this list had no email address from 2022. I can tick them off the list. This time I'm going to generate receipts and letters for print and mail. So I want the acknowledgement letter and the receipt to be generated, and I'll print it out, pop it in a window envelope, send it off. I'm definitely choosing cumulative receipt per donor, despite it being the hardest word for an Australian to say. Cumulative is one of my favorite words. We'll go next. Bum, bum, bum. Errors. So as mentioned, we've got checks and balances in place to make sure that you're never sending a receipt with missing information on it. And if you do go to send receipts for transactions that have missing required information, you'll get an error like this, where we say, hey, 14 of these transactions do not have the required information to continue. Whether it's a missing email address because you're trying to email somebody that doesn't have one, whether you're in Canada and there's a missing address because that's required for Canadian receipts for compliance reasons, we'll let you know. And you have a choice. You can either add the missing information, and I would do this for 14. That's not too many. Maybe it's only one contact with all their 14 transactions that is missing the information. But if it said 1,000, I would probably either stop or I would just skip those receipts and head on to the remaining contacts. Because the thing is, the information that can be missing from this has to be contact information. And every contact profile that has the missing information is going to be removed. So you can always come back to those contacts later. You're not going to end up with split receipts or anything like that. We'll just remove the contacts that don't fit, that don't have the right information. You can come back to them later. But like I said, I've only got 14. It's probably one contact. Let's see who it is. We'll add the missing information. Okay, and the clues about what information is missing can be found in the required fields. So if I was trying to send this via email to Ebenezer Scrooge, I would have a little red star here saying you don't have the email address, and we need that to send the email. But in this case, I was creating a generate and print letter and receipt. One of the best things about our acknowledgement letters is that they have the address populated at the top. So you can fold them up, put them in a window envelope, send them off. Ebenezer Scrooge doesn't have an address. If I was in Canada, I would have to put this address no matter what method I was doing. But this is a USA account. I don't have the address. I don't know the address. I don't have an email for Ebenezer. I just want the receipt. I'm going to give it to him next time I see it. So what I might do is I might cancel, and instead of having receipts and letters, I might switch to just receipts for print and mail. Or I might say, let's go email and I'll show you how that changes things. So now this is increased. 48 transactions have missing information. And you can see that the little star next to full address is no longer there because I'm emailing this receipt. An address isn't required for this because I'm in the USA in the test account. I'm actually in Vancouver. But we do need an email to be able to do that. And the cool thing is that any changes that you make in the bulk receipting tool will update the contact's profile. So you don't have to sort of worry about putting the email address in here and then going back to Darth Vader's profile later on and seeing that it's blank. You only need to put it in here once. So in this case, you do need an email address to continue for that. But I'm going to cancel and I'm going to switch to generate just receipts for print and mail because I don't need an address for those. And you can see that that's how I've gotten through the error. So it's up to you. You might find that you've got a bunch of people who don't have email addresses and you might skip them and come back to them at the end and only generate receipts for them. You might not even generate receipts for them at all if you've got no way of contacting them. But this is sort of how those errors work, how they make sure that you're always being compliant. So I'll go ahead and I will save that. Let's get rid of that filter. And I'm going to head to my receipt groups. And here's that receipt group I just created. You can see it's still processing. These do take a little bit longer because we're generating a file for you with all those receipts. But if I jump in, oh, there it is. It didn't take that long actually. So I can see that the status is receipted, which means the receipts have been created. They're undelivered though, because I have not delivered them. I haven't even downloaded them yet. So I'll go ahead and I'll say download all. And this will download them to my computer in a zip file. Let me find that for you somewhere on my screen. Didn't think this through, did I? Here we go. Here they are. And what I might do is head back to downloads, and you can see this is here. I'll just need to extract them all because it's a zip file. So we'll go extract all, and I might call it my no emails 2022 receipts. And we'll extract, and that means that you'll be able to kind of work with those now. So here's my folder, just select them all and print them from here. And then if I chose to have the receipt letters, they'd be connected. If it's just receipts, you'll only get the receipts printed. Now, that is the bulk receipting tool. Very excited about it. Basically, by the end, the idea is that you would kind of get to a point where you can select all pages and issue receipts for 700 transactions. So I would call this 2022 receipts email address. And I'm going to generate receipts and send via email. I'm going to do a cumulative receipt. I'm going to get to next and just do the rest. And I'm very lucky. All 45 of the remaining recipients have email addresses. So I can click save and that's it. I've issued all my receipts for 2022. Takeaways. That was a lot of information. I want to summarize and make sure that we're all kind of comfy with the takeaways. The key takeaways are, this is where we're sitting right now. The only receipts that you need to issue come receipting season are the unreceipted transactions in your account. And where do we find those? We find them in fundraising. We go to receipts and we go to the unreceipted transactions tab here. You'll get a list of them automatically. These are the only donations you need to worry about. The only donations you should be issuing receipts for are right here because everything else has a receipt. Don't worry about the donations that came through your Keela donation form. Don't worry about the scheduled receipts. Keela's going to organize that in the first week of your fiscal year. It's just the unissued outstanding receipts that you need to do, which of course we use the bulk receipting tool for. It should take you maybe 2 hours to do. If you do it, if you follow my steps, if you remove all the ignored ones, if you remove everybody who doesn't have an email address and send theirs separately, in theory, you will be able to send in bulk every transaction that has an email address. And if you're Canadian, an email address and an address on it. Automatically done. We do have some bonus takeaways. And I want to look at the Q&A just to get an idea because this is all the stuff that I can cover if we don't have any questions. So let me have an idea. I'm just going to take a little peek in the Q&A. It looks like we've got no open questions. Looks like Nicole and Stefania have been very busy answering questions as we go. Things are looking great. So I might just keep going a little bit, but remember, if you've got Q&A questions, now's the time to pop them in the Q&A, not in the chat, please. Please pop them in the Q&A. Okay. Firstly, I want to talk about these little coming soon items because I'm sure that folks will be very curious about that. We have one more release for the end of the year that we're hoping to get out in December. It may come in January, but we're really, really working hard to release this in December to make this receipting process a little bit easier. So we've got a couple of things. The ability to cancel receipts in bulk. And what this will do is we know that sometimes you may have issued receipts and you might regret it. You might change your mind. I may not have convinced you on this webinar to please stop reissuing receipts. Maybe you want to cancel a bunch of them so that you can use the bulk receipting tool to reissue them all in bulk. Now, the bulk receipting tool, it's designed to create receipts. It's not reissuing receipts. It's creating receipts for these unreceipted transactions only. It is not compliant to create a receipt for a donation where a receipt is already present. So like I said, you would need to cancel that receipt so that it can be reissued. We will be introducing the ability to cancel receipts in bulk. At the moment, you do need to cancel those one by one. We're looking at introducing the ability to cancel multiple receipts at a time. For emergencies only. Please don't do it if you don't have to. Next, smart codes for receipt letters. We have them in our receipts, just not in our, we have them in our, in our emails. We have them in our direct mail. At the moment, we do not have smart codes in our receipt acknowledgement letters. We're going to be introducing that. So you're going to have to be able to really go well on that, on those receipt letters. Next, transaction smart codes for receipts, which is really exciting. We introduced transaction smart codes in our emails, in our direct mails. So, you know, things like last donation amount, donation date, stuff like that. You're going to be able to put those into your receipt letters and really customize them in a lovely way. Maybe you can say, this is all your donations and your last donation of this was our favorite or something along those lines. One thing to note, the only thing that won't be available is an impact area or a campaign. We will not have those available in receipts. Instead, we're going to allow folks to turn those on the actual receipt themselves. Sorry, they won't be available as smart codes on the receipt letter, but they will be able to be added to the receipts because we find that's a more logical place for them. And lastly, the ability to reissue a receipt via email. So it'll be one by one. but you'll be able to go in and locate a receipt and just resend it. If someone reaches out to you and says in January and says, hey, you sent me a receipt back in February, I'm a naughty donor and I didn't save it, can you resend it to me? And you'll be able to say, no worries, click, and Keela will resend it to them via email. So those are new things that are coming in. I can see some questions. So I'm going to not cover these big items, the training extra things. I'll make sure that we've got videos of that included in the recording. I'm just going to focus on questions for the moment. Okay. Go over yearly donation summaries. Well, Amy, I can't argue with that. You want to cover yearly donation summaries in your question? I've got to do it now. So I will cover yearly donation summaries by email because it won't take too long. So this is my response to, this is what we're going to say. If you come to us in January and you say, for some bizarre reason, I want to cancel all of my receipts and reissue them because everyone who needs a new receipt in January, despite industry best practices saying, no, 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 do not do this. You're wasting your valuable, valuable time. I will say to you, don't do that. Do this instead. Everyone should definitely do this so that every donor of theirs can have a donation summary at the end of the year. These are separate to receipts. This is an email that Keela can generate automatically to have the entire summary of a contact's donation history for the year. So to do this, and I'll make sure a detailed training video is included in this, but to do this, we head to communications. I create an email marketing. I'll call it Donation Summaries 2022. We'll click save. I wonder if I have an email template in here ready to go. Didn't think this slipped through, did I? Save templates? Oh, don't judge them. They might be terrible. This is a very old test account. I don't have any, so that's good. Let's go with the old classic Puppies United. So in here, it's really easy. They work like a smart code, the donation summaries. So let's say I've written a beautiful holiday message. Happy New Year, welcome to 2023. We can't wait to have you support us again. Here's a summary of how you helped us in 2022. And I would click and drag a row here. And then I would use this donation summary block here. And I would click and drag it there. That's it. It's in my email. Now, this is a preview only. Keep in mind, because it works like a smart code. It's going to pull that information from the contact's profile. So you won't be able to send this to yourself as a test or anything like that. It needs a live contact to send it to. But I can choose the dates. So I'm going to say, let's go with, if I can do that, January. We'll go January 1st, and then we'll say December 31st. You can choose to include in-kind donations. You can choose to have the gift type on there. I'm probably going to remove that. We've got the total amount, and you can have, campaign, impact area, things like that. If you want to include that, you can. But this is going to automatically populate for each contact, and they'll have an email in their inbox that has these donation amounts. This can be very useful for folks who make lots of donations and need to take that information to their accountant. Sometimes it's enough just to take that information and keep the receipts on file if they ever need them again. So it depends sort of where you are and how fancy your accountant is. But definitely everyone should be sending this and including that donation summary block in their emails. Okie dokie. Next on, Sandra. Hello, Sandra. Corporations don't necessarily need a tax receipt. Using the donation as a marketing expense is better for them, but some want them. Is this dealt with when they donate? Can you say at the time that no tax receipt is needed? This happens on the actual payment level itself. So, I mean, it's up to them. Like they'll need to communicate that to you in whatever way they wish. But the easiest way to provide them with the avenue to communicate that is to provide revenue forms. So we do have these two payments in Keela. Let me close out of this. We have in fundraising, we have transactions, and let me see, I don't really have a revenue in here, I don't think, but you can log donations and you can log revenue payments. Every receipt that you produce for a donation will be a compliant donation receipt. Every receipt for a revenue is just a transaction receipt. Sorry, it's just a transaction receipt. So if a corporation doesn't need a receipt and they've communicated that with you, send them the revenue form. give them the choice. Sometimes what can be handy is if you send them an email and you have, do you want a compliant tax receipt? Do you want this to be tax deductible? Click on this button and that goes to a donation form. Or do you want to make a payment with no compliant tax receipt? Click on this revenue form. So that's how you provide them with that avenue, by using multiple different forms. Oh, here we go. So see how I've got a donation form and a revenue form? That's how I separate those. Another way that you could do it, if you know them off the top of your head, is that you could find those corporations in that unreceipted transaction list and you could ignore them as well. So we could go in there and we could filter by unreceipted transactions. Maybe I can do that here. Let's go previous fiscal year. Maybe I could come in here and I could say contact type is a filter. And I'm going to contains any of, we go company to narrow things down a little bit for you. And maybe then you can go through and you can find the ones that don't need receipts and you could mark those as ignored. So let's say I see NYPD. Okay, NYPD have gotten enough out of me this year. We don't need them to be getting a receipt. So we'll filter by full name and I might say NYPD just to make things a little easier for you so you don't have to click them individually. And then I could select all pages and mark as ignored that way. So a couple of different options. Hopefully you can do it at the donation level though, because then the receipt for the revenue payment is already going to be made and you wouldn't have to worry about it in here. But this is a good backup plan. Jesse, we send receipts for each transaction throughout the year. Can you go over yearly donation summaries? Yes, I can. And I'll also make sure I include, like I said, a training video for that and anything else here. So yearly donation summaries via mail, yearly donation summaries via email work in the same way. It's just a different part of the builder that you're using. So if we don't have any other questions, maybe I'll talk about that a little bit. Oh, you know what? I'm just going to run through them all. We've got 2 minutes. I can do it. So I demonstrated the sending a donation summary via an email. Some of you might not know this. We have a direct mail tab in here where you can create a direct mail and include donation summaries in it. If you're one of those lovely organizations that love to send handwritten notes at the end of the year, I love it. I think it's amazing. So we can go 2022 donation summary and we can go save, and then building this email, you'll be generating it and then able to print it off via a PDF. So we've got the ability to edit the content and it works in the same way as the eBlast builder a little bit. In terms of you'll recognize this as the receipt letter kind of format. And then I believe, oh, here we go. Is it in here? Display donation summary. Yes. Okay. So you can write the letter in here and use smart codes. So maybe you say, dear, and look for the old smart name. Always use smart name in case they have a preferred name they want to use. Enter your text here. Please find below your donation summary. You can have the date. You can remove the date from the header. You can have address display, remove that. Display signature at the bottom. That's something that you should have set up in your organization settings that I have not set up in my organization settings, which is why this is blank. And then down here, I can display that donation summary in here and I can choose those dates and select those options. So that's how we do it for direct mail. And then at the end, you just generate those. Once you've filled in all the details, you just need to say which recipients you want to produce that letter for and then generate, and it'll generate PDFs for all of those direct mail letters and you download them and you print them off. So that's yearly donation summaries there. Oh, I've got to show you this, but address updates via custom forms and email. So for my Canadian friends, as I said, as you all well know, you do need addresses to be able to produce receipts. Something I like to do, if you have a whole bunch of contacts who, let's go to segments, and we'll say no address with email. In here, what I might do is go address, and let's say we don't have a city. Let's say the city is empty, but the primary email is full. So I'm going to say anybody who doesn't have a city populated in their address, I'm going to assume that their address is either incomplete or, it's not there at all. And then primary email is filled. So these folks have some or an entirely missing address and they have a primary email address, which allows me to contact them. I'm going to save this as a segment. I've got 9 contacts who have an address, have an email address, but no address. Oh, you know what? Actually, sorry. We do need to make sure that they donated this year. Oh, you know what? No, you don't. You need this information. Your records should always be up to date. So from here, what I would do is I would send a communication to that group of people from here, from the email marketing tool. And in it, I would have a button that I'm going to connect to a custom form. Oh, we don't want the old form and the original. I'm going to connect it to a custom form, and I'm only going to have on that form full name, email address, and address. And that's how I'm going to make sure I'm getting all those receipts. So that's a tip I have for getting those addresses for my Canadian friends. The last thing I'm going to leave you all with is the most special thing of all that I want to make sure everyone knows about. On the 1st of January 2023, or at any point, please, everyone on this call, go to fundraising, click on this fundraising report, select the year. You can do up to 5 years, but I'll just put the last year. Click save, and we're going to produce a lovely fundraising report for you that you can send to your board members, and you can take credit for it. You don't even need to tell them that we made it for you. You can say, look, I made it myself, because you technically did. I mean, you clicked the button. Here we go. It just takes a few seconds. We'll download it. And it has the address that we're looking at, and it just has some really cool stuff. Looks at your total donation history, the amounts, the individual donations, looks at some really cool metrics like the top performing campaigns that you had, the things that you ran that were really successful. We've got a breakdown of your recurring donors, so you can use this to plan your strategy for next year. So it's a beautiful PDF. Everyone should have it, and it's free. It comes with your account. So that's a nice little bonus tip. Okay, looks like I've answered all of the questions that we have available. Does anybody have any more questions for me? I've got nowhere to be. I can stay on, but it looks like none. I think we did it. Last webinar
I think we
review.
have one last one in the Q&A.
Oh, I answered that one. That was the one
Perfect.
of corporations. So we're good.
Awesome.
Thanks, Nicole. Wonderful team leader you are. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in for the whole year. We really appreciate it. I wish you all the happiest of holidays. The next time you hear from me, I will be in Australia. So looking forward to connecting with you at 5 a.m. in the morning next time. Bye, everyone. Enjoy your day. Oh, can't seem to find a way to end this. Bye, everyone. Enjoy your day.